Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news, a daily briefing on stand-up comedy, comedians, and the comedy industry. A sentence I can't remember unless I write it down, but the algorithm loves it. David Cross has a new special. It's called The End of the Beginning of the End, and the LA Times was like, what does the end of the beginning of the end mean? David Cross explains, well, you could look at it a couple different ways. To me, it signifies the beginning of the end has occurred, and we're now at the end of the beginning of the end. And from where you go with that, that's up for you to decide. The LA Times likes that this special shot in a club. Cross said, I've shot specials in theaters, and it's just different. Not that one's better than the other. They're just different. You have a different relationship with the audience. When I first started touring, I'd go to music venues and I'd have a band open up for me. Then I'd just go up and pretty much perform as long as I could until I had to pee. Sometimes I'd have a band playing, sometimes two bands. Then I'd go out. I did that a couple times and stopped doing that, and then did theaters. And I decided for the last two specials, when I shoot it, I'll go to a music venue. I was at the 40 Watt Club in Athens last time. I was at the Metro in Chicago before that. Both places I'd played on earlier tours, and it's not seated. People are standing there at the stage, and I prefer it. It's more fun. It's not as lucrative, but it's a more fun show to do. Cross talked about his movie roles and if his daughter has seen anything. He said, I don't actively shield her, but I don't introduce her to anything. So I was a little bummed out, and I got over it pretty quickly. But when I found out she had seen a little bit of Alvin and the Chipmunks, and only because I didn't want to spoil the enjoyment of what movies are and what kids' movies are and how things work, and I feel like that would introduce an element of reality that I just want her to be able to enjoy these things without. She's seen Kung Fu Panda when she was younger, 3, 4, 5 times, and has no idea that I'm in that. My voice is there. She knows I do stand-up. She gets that now. When she was younger, she'd say, Daddy's silly for a living. I'm just trying to ride the balance of letting her have those childhood joys and experiences. Thought this was interesting. Cross said, I still get excited to watch specials by some of my favorite comics, but there's a quality that's missing. And these are all stand-ups I love, and they're not that great. They're not bad, but they're not special, And I don't know why that is. I mean, there's still funny stuff, but I don't ever want to get to that place where it just feels a little phoned in a little bit. That's why these last two specials were shot in the more intimate setting that feels special. As I said, the energy's different. It's a little bit different, and it's less slick. You're in the moment. You don't need $1 million to shoot a special. You don't need 28 camera angles. It's just BS, and it takes something away. Independent Rhode Island caught up with Hannibal Buress. Hannibal dabbles in music when he's not doing comedy. As for music, Hannibal said it's really writing in another format. If you're a writer, you can write stand-up, you can write a sketch, you can write for television. You can do copy for somebody, you can ghostwrite for somebody else, or you can write music. Music just another way to write stuff, and it also necessarily doesn't have to be funny at every moment. It can be funny, but it can have a range of emotions. So there's ideas that I've touched on in my stand-up that I've also brought into music and stories that I've told in both where I've been able to approach it in a different way. In music, you can focus on small details and things like that in a story, but every moment doesn't necessarily have to be funny. In stand-up, every moment doesn't have to be funny either with the setup and everything, but it's good to have an arsenal of both formats where you can examine any idea and see which format goes in best. Julio Torres was in Interview Magazine. He fielded some questions. One of the questions was, hey, Julio, I think my apartment is haunted, but the rent is super cheap. How can I expel the ghosts? Great question. Julio Torres says, your rent is super cheap because your apartment is haunted. You can't have your cake and eat it too, okay? If you expel the ghosts, that means you're expelling the deceased who are making your rent cheaper because you're a subletter of the ghosts. Now, how can you get rid of them? Evicting them's not on the table. I think you have to learn how to coexist and make this the best you can, or if it feels like it's untenable because they're eating your food or whatever, I would just find a new apartment. Charlie Day has been cast in the new film Golf Trip. Golf Trip follows 3 longtime best friends who reunite for their annual golf getaway. What begins as a relaxing escape quickly unravels when they are unexpectedly paired with the universally dreaded single golfer. As tensions rise and personalities clash, the trip spirals into a series of increasingly chaotic and comedic misadventures. GQ caught up with Joel Kim Booster. He's on the current season of Scrubs, which I'm enjoying the heck out of. We learned that Joel Kim Booster is a no-breakfast guy. Joel tells GQ, I don't eat my first meal until late in the afternoon. My body is incredibly used to it at this point. I find the most effective way for me to eat what I want without necessarily tracking every macro and stuff like that and still maintaining some of the ratio to body fat to muscle that I have. Joel, do you have any go-to snacks? He says, what I try to do is only have available stuff in the house that is reasonably good for you to some degree. I'm big on fried chicken skin as a low-carb chip substitute, fruit leather instead of candy, protein ice cream. Stuff like that. So it tricks you into thinking you're being bad, but in fact, you're actually being bad in a more contained way. The Melbourne International Comedy Festival continues. I pulled some clips. Takashi Wakasuki's show is called Wabi Sabi Comedy. Now, he's got a show tomorrow at 3:30 in the afternoon. So if you're in Melbourne on a Sunday and you need an afternoon comedy, go see Takashi. As for the title Wabi Sabi Comedy, we learn that Wabi Sabi is a Japanese aesthetic that finds beauty in imperfection, impermanence, and incompleteness. Waka believes the concept of Wabi Sabi is the great way to make people happy, and he thinks it might connect and adapt to his comedy. Here's a clip just to make sure everybody gets the joke, plus or minus the accent or the references. The material here is talking about in Melbourne, they have a super awesome trolley system, and you have to tap your card when you get on, and you have to tap your card when you get off. Okay, so he's talking about tapping your fare card here. I'll let him take it from here.
I have a question, Melbourne. Do you know Mikey card? Like transportation card in Melbourne, right? The question is, do you tap when you take tram? Are you listening? And you know you should, right? But so many people don't, right? And I found there's a ranking there. Melbourne Tram happiness ranking. I found that. So you don't have to agree with me, but just please listen. So number 1 to number 4. So number 4, worst Melbourne Tram trip is when you didn't tap your card and the inspector came to check. That's the worst because you have to pay the fine. So expensive. You feel worse. That's number 4, right? Next, number 3. Number 3 is when you tapped your card and the inspector didn't come to check. It sounds normal, right? Sounds normal, but you might think, oh, I didn't have to tap. That could have been free. I could have saved money for the coffee. You feel like you're wasting money feeling. It's not happy, number 3, right? And next, number 2. Number 2 is when you didn't tap your card and the inspector didn't come to check. It's just normal, lucky, free tram, right? And you are happy, but you have to get scared all the time. In the tram, you have to check if the inspector come or not from the window. It's half happiness and half anxious. That's why number 2. And the number 1, happiest Melbourne tram trip is when you tap the card and the inspector came to check. It's the happiest, do you think? Because you feel extra achievement. And you're proud of yourself so much. Because you know you just made the best decision in your life. Tapping card. And you are so confident. You are so confident. And the inspector came, asked you, can I check your Mikey card? And you said, hell yes. Of course, yes, you can check everything about me. You are so confident because you tap the card, right? And I know you can add extra happiness in the situation, extra bonus happiness in the situation. So you tap the card, inspector came, you are so happy and confident. And then you saw someone have to pay the fine in the tram. That's extra bonus happiness, do you think?
I like him a lot. He's Takashi Wagasugi. And that is your comedy news for today. See you tomorrow.